So yeah, just stop, let's talk here and start converting this website to this website using CSS and see how powerful the CSS is. Okay. Hello folks, welcome to Doing a Tech channel. Today I'm going to teach you how to use CSS. On the previous tutorial we learned how to use HTML, and in this tutorial basically we'll continue, as I promised you, to teach you also how to use CSS. So basically, if we just go to next slide here, what is CSS is? A CSS is a language that we use it to style the HTML document, for example, applying colors, background, changing position, adding animation, and so on. And what does CSS stand for? It stands for Cascading Style Sheet. And that basically the simple series that we are going to just to have in this. Basically, we'll be focusing more on practical side. In the CSS, the most important thing that we need to understand and to know is the CSS selectors. So selectors, this is where we are going to use, for example, if you need to apply any color or background or any CSS style to any part of the HTML, we have to know how we can select first the HTML elements, then we can apply the style for it. And we have three different ways we can select an HTML element, then apply a CSS for it. So the first one and the common use is a class. We use a class, we add a class attribute to HTML element. And I introduce attributes in HTML tutorial. If you didn't watch the HTML tutorial, so you can go back and watch that and follow us in this tutorial. And also we can use ID. Usually it's used for other purpose. For example, when we learn a JavaScript, we will use ID to select an HTML element, but also we use it in CSS in some scenario to apply some style. And also we can use HTML element itself. So basically we can use the direct HTML element, for example, h1 or div or other HTML elements. But the good practice always to use a class name, because if you are using HTML element and there is a multiple same HTML element and you would like to add a style different from each one of for each one of them, then in this scenario it's good to use a classes. But if you are going to apply same style for all these HTML elements, so it's fine to go with HTML element name. And ID, as I mentioned, this one is usually good practice to use it with JavaScript and other things, but if ended up to use it in CSS, it still is good way to go through. It's not it still is right way. So that's the selectors. I just try to take a few minutes to talk about them because they are important. Requirements to learn CSS. Basically, you should have basic knowledge about HTML, and you need editor. So I'm going to use Visual Studio Code editor, and you can use your preferred one. And a browser, so I'm going to use a Chrome browser. You can use your preferred one also. If you don't like a Chrome, you can use a Firefox or Internet Explorer, but I would recommend to use this Chrome browser. And the last slideshow here, basically just some recommended resources. I would recommend this if you would like to go and read more in advanced CSS. And so basically you can start with this 3W School CSS. There is a lot of tutorials, but you need to select CSS tutorial, and this I would recommend for very beginner people to start with. And if you develop your skills and you need to learn more and more about CSS, you can go to this Mozilla or Developer Mozilla website too. And so basically this is a very quick introduction, and let's go directly and start writing our code. And before actually writing the code and what we are going to do here, in previous tutorial, we learned how to build this very nice portfolio using HTML, but doesn't have CSS yet. So I promised, so I'm going to create a CSS tutorial so we can style this, actually this portfolio, our website, to look like this one. For example, so at the end of this tutorial, we are gonna to change this HTML page just to make it same as this portfolio here, and this just to make it more, to make you more motivated and excited about this, not just learning the CSS itself by using the normal way other developers do. Basically, I will prefer to do this in building a website, so will make us more engagement with the tutorial and explanation. So as I mentioned that previously, we built this website here or portfolio using HTML, only HTML, and this code already I have it here. So, and if you didn't watch the previous tutorial, so basically you can go back and watch, and I will leave the source code down of the tutorial. And this code, we need to open it just after you download that or clone it. Then you just need to open, right click here with this, then choose Chrome browser, and then we'll open it on the browser. And also we need to open this on VS Code. So basically this folder, we need to open it with the VS Code. And basically I'm going to use a terminal or just open VS Code from your machine, for example. And then from after opening it here, you can press this folders or these files and then select folder, and I'm going to just select my project. After selecting the project, basically we'll open it in this way. So I'm going to close all this file here, and so in the left side here it's going to show me all the files that we have and images. So we'll start by first file index.html, which is a home page or the main file that we have, which is appearing here. If we come to this, so if you press here this home, basically this is the home page. There, before I start do anything in CSS to link CSS with the HTML, there is 3 different ways to do that. The first one and easiest one that to add inline CSS, or adding like directly CSS to HTML element. If let's just start example, very simple one. If we try to pass inline CSS to this high, if we come back here to this page, let's see where that high is. It's this line here. In opening tag, we can add a style, and then in a style here we can add a color. For example, the color will be the color name itself, then the color type, let's say red. If we save this one and come to the browser, reload the page, and see how now it's changed to red color. So this is called inline style. Let me just duplicate this line here, and I'm going to remove it from the second one. So this inline style. Yes, I will comment this line here to keep it for you for learning. So this is how we learn in HTML, how we can comment or use comment in HTML. So basically this inline style. And also you can just add description here, can just to know that, for example, if you came later to know how to add inline style, you can just call it inline style. And save it. This is the inline style. The next second way how we can integrate CSS with HTML, here on the head, basically we can open a tag, or it's called style, and close that tag with also a style. So opening tag for a style and closing tag, and in between here then we can add our style. And I mentioned on the introduction, there is 3 different selector for CSS. Let's use the second or third example that I mentioned using HTML element itself. For example, if we need to style the same H1 that I just styled a few minutes, this one here, or H1 here, how I can select that, I can just add H1. So in this scenario, it will style any H1 in this page, basically because we have only one, so it will style that one. If we try again to add the color, and in this scenario let's add just blue color, and save it, go to the browser, reload, and now the color changed to blue. So this is the next second way how you can integrate your CSS with your HTML file. All this is our good right way, but the best practice way to have separate file, because if you have a lot of CSS styling, then your style file is going, or your style code is going to grow up, and you will have too much code in one file and will be hard to read. So basically that's why we suggest to use an independent file only for CSS. So how is the third one? Before do the third one, I'm going to comment this. I will leave it just here for learning, and add also comment here. let me close this. I will add comment here for this section here, how to, or this second way to integrate CSS with HTML, and save it. Let me close this one to here. So basically this is a first way we can add this inline here, inline CSS, and second way we can add this style tag, opening tag, closing tag inside the head. And the third way, we need to create a file in the same directory. Let's create a file called style.css, and this style.css now we can start to add the same as here in this index. We need to add the selector that we need to apply the CSS for. For example, if you go back to the browser and reload, now the this title color is changed to default one is black color. And if we need to add a new color, we need to add our selector, which this scenario, I'm going to introduce the same selector just using HTML element itself. And then this, how we can add it here, and let's add a color. And this scenario, let's add just purple color, for example. Save it. And if we come back here and reload the page, the color will not change. It's still as the default one. Why? Because we created the file, we added the selector, added the color, but we didn't link this file with the HTML page. How we can link the page? So basically inside the head here, after the title, let's add or how this is the way how we can link that file. So basically we'll start link, and then this link has a attribute called rel, and the value it will be called style sheet. Then we'll add href, the important part in this link here. So we need to add this href. The href basically will be the directory for our file, and basically because the file in the same directory, we need to add just dot slash, and then the VS Code or Visual Studio Code will give us suggestion here. We can just select this style.css. If you didn't give that suggestion to you, just you need to write style.css, which, or your file name for the style, which is here, this one, style.css. If we save this one and go back here and reload, now that changed to purple color. So this is the third way, and this is the one that, this way that we are going to use to apply CSS for this website. And I hope that was clear for how you can integrate CSS with HTML. Next point, basically, we need to focus on this nav bar here. So to make it look same as this nav bar here, very nice one here, how we can do that one. If we come back, let's come back to our home page. This nav bar, let's first focus on this nav bar section here. And also I'm going to give you some tips how you can actually use a line or just styling here and then move it to your code. And before that, we have this unordered list. We need to update this unordered list to give it some styling. And I'm going to introduce the next selector to add a class. And this scenario is a class, I'm going to call it just list. And still we can use the HTML element name here, but I'm going to use all different selector just to learn how to use them. And here, so basically we'll add dot and then the class name. When you have a class in the CSS, to select that class you need to use dot, then the class name, then open this curly braces. And what we need to do here basically, and if we save it and we can come back and reload our page, open the inspector, and then from the inspector press this here, this arrow, and then press this content here. So basically this is our unordered list with a class called list. Here we can start adding CSS. So this list basically will have list of items, and each list will have anchor tag. And first things I'm going to introduce basically is called flex. In the CSS we have flex. Flex will allow you to control the position of your content. So basically flex will when apply flex will update all this content to be displayed in line in one row, basically, because this each one of them taking one column, because the list item is a block element. And then when apply Felix, we'll take all of them to put them in one line. Basically, if I do that, like, will be display Felix, so automatically, as you see, that update put all of them in one row, basically, because we'll update all element to be just displayed in one row. That's the first part we need to do. And next part, we need to move this content to be here on the right of this in order list. If we highlight here, see the in order list taking the full width, but we need to move this content from the beginning to the end. Display Felix, or on Felix, basically we need to say justify content, then Felix end. So the most common things that we use in Felix, display Felix first, you have to be this first display Felix to move this content. And then if you need to move this content to the end or to the center or to the beginning, the default one, it is a start, Felix start. But then if you need to move it to the end of the column, it will be Felix end. But also there is a other option, basically, as you see here on the suggestion. We are going to focus only on the three, start, end, and center. Basically, this is the center. It will move it to the center of your widths. But in our scenario, we are going to move it to the end or Felix end. You can call it, say, just end or Felix end, but it's good to go with the Felix end. And that now our content, that's basically very quick how we can use Felix to position our content horizontally. And next step will come to how we can position our content vertically using Felix. But for now, let's just use this two example here. Now we added this, how we can just copy this, because if we reload the page, still this CSS is not applied to this content. And we need to go back after copy this, just add it to style here or to this list. If we go back here and reload, now the style is applied. So next step, as you see that we now have this all in one line, but we need to remove this dot. And to remove this dot, basically this dot related to list item, we need to select the list item. How we can select it? Can come here and try to select this one. This is the anchor tag, but select this list item, for example, and then just style or list style, then just none. As you see that now the dot disappeared. How we can add this? We need to copy this style here from here and come back to our style here. So we have this, we can use the HTML selector, just li, and then just apply this list style to be none. So if come back, see here all this list item here, so basically we remove that dot from them. If we reload the page, now all this list style doesn't have that dot anymore. But it's good practice, because if we have another list style, for example, if we have list this list in other pages and we don't need to remove this dot, for example, if we come to a skills page, if you remember, if we go to this skills here, we have this list here, this list style, because we didn't add this CSS to this file, but when we'll add to this CSS file, this list style will be removed, and we don't need to remove this list style. So that's why it's good to use like nested CSS or use classes. So first we'll select the parent for this list style. The parent in this scenario is going to be the list itself, then any list item inside this parent, then try to remove this dot from it, only this element inside this list. This scenario basically will keep other using the default one. If we save it, still this will work fine. If we come to our page, here's the main page, home page, and reload. So now we don't have that list style. Next step, basically we need to add style for the anchor tag, this one. For example, this anchor tag or the link that will take us to different pages. First things, I'm going to add padding. I'm going to introduce padding. On padding on CSS, there is different way we can add padding, like padding top, for example, 10 pixel, padding right, 10 pixel, and padding left 10 pixel and padding bottom 10 pixel. And now you see only the right one, but for example, if we highlight this area, you would see the padding around the card. And these four approach here, you can do them in one line, but before do that in one line, I'm going to leave the example for you. As I mentioned, this is still, we don't have it unless if you go and save it inside here. And also because we will have anchor tag on other pages, and we don't need to our style to affect them. We need to affect all this anchor tag inside this list item, and also inside this unordered list. And so it's good practice. We can just select first the parent, which is a list, and then then the list item itself, then anchor tag. This scenario only will apply the anchor tag inside this list item and inside this list. And but still, if you do this, still it will work. But if you have other anchor tag in the page and you don't need to apply the style for, this style will go to. So to avoid that, it's good to nest it like this. And inside here, we'll add our CSS that we just added. So this will apply now for all anchor tag. If we save it and reload the page, as you see now, we have padding between each one of these. And so as I mentioned, we can do all this in one line by doing like just padding. And then first one will be the top, basically 10 pixel. Because all are 10 pixel, you can just add like this 10 pixel will be applied for all other direction. This will do if, for example, and also on CSS comment, I'm going to introduce comment on CSS, how we can use comment. So this approach here, just /* and at the beginning and at the end is */, and in between you can add your code or you can add your comment, and this will not affect your style and will not be affect your website, or it will not be shown at all. This is only just for description for you to remember when you come back later, for example, if you forget what this will do. For example, if we just comment out this line here, we'll have all other ways we can style this, and we can reload, and still now if we just highlight here, this is still we have, as you see here, this is showing you the description all about this element. Basically the padding still is around all side 10 pixel. And next example, also it can add, like if you would like to add different, for example, sizes for all other different section. If we need to start by the top 10 pixel, first we'll start by top, the second one will be right, for example 15 pixel, and then the bottom 10 pixel, and then the left 15 pixel. And if I save it, let me just comment this out, save it, come back, reload, and now if I highlight, you will see the different, and right, left 15, top down 10. How to know that? If I just press this and now come here to this section, this here just will give me like a review what is this element has padding. See, left 15, right 15, top 10, bottom 10. The padding usually will be inside the element, and then next step will come to the margin. The margin will be out the element. And I'm going to show you, because that maybe will not make sense for now at least. If I give background, let me give background now, and this point, if I added background, we can add background color on the CSS, we can add background image, and this is the most common to use. This first I'm going to use background color in this scenario. Let's give it background, for example, gray, and save it, reload, and this background for each element, because there is no space between these elements, that we see all of them like in one row with the same color. But now if we introduce margin same just as padding syntax, margin, for example, margin right 10 pixel, and if we reload, save, as you see now the margin is applied outside this anchor tag position or content outside the anchor tag content. The padding, the margin will be applied outside, but the padding inside. If I now comment out this padding, then you will see the difference, that the padding is applied inside the anchor tag element. The padding basically will be applied inside the element, but the margin will be applied out or around the element, outside the element, or the element content. If I just undo this, changes back. So as I mentioned, still we can use the margin, same syntax for this padding. We have two different ways, and we can start like this, and just change this to margin, and I can just comment this and save it. And now we'll update, I will add margin around all the card, and let me select the anchor tag. And if we just scroll down, if you see now we have margin 10 around all the area, and as you see is highlighting here, the margin will be outside the element content and the padding will be inside. So now we have 10 around all section. But if we need to make this like one in one, just like this margin, because we use same margin across all direction, so still we can use this approach, which will do same job. If we save it, reload the page, and now come back, select for example this anchor tag, and still it's 10 pixel around this anchor tag. And still if we need to use different sizes, as I mentioned, let me just take this, we can use also the same approach for the padding. So if for example if you need to add 10 pixel as the top, 15 pixel on the right, 10 pixel on the bottom, 15 pixel on the left. If we save it, let me just comment this line and reload, and now we should have more space around. Let's select the anchor tag, and now if you see, left 15, right 15, top 10, bottom 10. That's how we can add margin in different 3 different ways. And I will leave this comment like this, you can just come back later and learn how to add that. And on the background, let's come back to the background, and or for now at least I'm going to take the background out. I will come when I come later, I will explain more about the background. So now we reload. Next step, as you see here, this underline on each anchor tag, we need to take this out. And to do that, first we need to select our element, which anchor tag itself, then just text. To remove that, you need to use text or text decoration. It's called text decoration, and then apply none. None, that just that mean remove it. And as you see that now is just now we don't have that. We don't have that text decoration anymore. And that, as I mentioned, is related to the anchor tag itself. We need to go and add this to our anchor tag selector. We have this anchor tag here. We need to just come here at the bottom and adding this basically text dash decoration, and the value will be none, and this will remove the text decoration for us. If we reload that, now we'll apply all to anchor tag, all anchor tags here, this one. Now we don't have that. Look very closer to this one, but as you see, the size is bigger and also is bold, and there is some animation, but the animation will leave it for the end of this tutorial. And if I come back again here, how we can use size on HTML on CSS. So basically we can add font and then dash size, and then you can add the size that you are looking for. In this scenario, let's just add 24 pixel, and if not enough, we can increase that one, and let's just make it, for example, 30. This thing that a little smaller, 30 pixel, and that look is okay. And now also we can introduce font family. As you see, this font is not look as like this, but still this font family is not imported from somewhere. But let's use how we can add font actually on CSS. We can add font dash family. Font family, there is a lot of font family type. You can select from all to one here, and I'm going to use this like initial one, the standard one that is just the browser use. I'm going to use this one. It's called sans self. So you can add your font family. Basically, if you don't know what font family you are going to use, you can use the same what I did here. Just this give you some of suggestion, but if you know your font family already, just try to use that one. This scenario, I'm going to use this size and this font family. And if I come back here, and this scenario basically will apply the size and the font family only for this anchor tag. If I reload, now it's changing the size for all anchor tag and also the font family. And I like the font family, and I need to apply this font family for all content in my website. And how I can do that? By just taking this, copy this from here, and at the beginning before this h1, I'm going to apply this font family to the body, all the body that on HTML should have this font. As I mentioned, on HTML we can have three, or how we can select HTML element. In CSS we can use 3 different way, which we can use the HTML element itself. For in this scenario, we are going to just call body instead. So basically, anything inside the body will use the same font family. If I reload, now you would recognize also here the font family change. If I reload, and now as you see that now it's changed, it look nice. And also we have this button look a bit better. And now we need to bring this image and to with this actually this anchor tag in same line, just same as we have here. And also to make the image a bit smaller, how we can do that? Let's first select the image itself, and let's add width 100. So this will take the default image size and we'll give it 100%. You can also use percentage, so this 100%. But if we need to make it smaller, the width. Also in CSS we can introduce the width. You can use pixel, you can use percentage, and there is other different type. But for now, let's just stick to the percentage and to the pixel. And also there is a difference between percentage and pixel. Percentage usually will be responsive. For example, if I just go like reload to make this screen smaller, as you see, the image now is going to be responsive and it's reducing the size automatically. But if I use the pixels, the size will be fixed. For example, if I use 400 pixel, this 40, let's make it 400, hit enter. If I just go to smaller than this, see the image is not resizing. That's because I'm not using percentage. So in this scenario, the size will be fixed. And in my scenario, I'm going to just give it 240 pixel and see how that look like. That a bit larger. Let's make it 200 and 200 pixel. Where is it? Yeah, it's here. That's a bit small. Let's make it 120. I think that is okay. Let's just keep that 120. And so this will give us a preview to see the size. If we are happy with, then we can go and try to add it to our code. And we need to select our image. Basically, if we come back to the page here, so the image inside the nav bar, and because if you have other images, we don't need to apply the same size to the other images. We need to apply the CSS only to this image inside this nav bar. There is 2 ways we can do it. The one way, we can add a class directly to this image and give it a specific name, or we can use the nav bar as a parent and then the image as a child. Let's in this scenario just add a class, and this scenario just call it logo, and come back to our CSS here, and at the end after this let's add dot logo. And as I mentioned, to add a class selector in CSS, first we'll add dot, then the class name, and then curly braces. And inside here we can add the width. And if we reload now, did we save logo, reload, and let's just make sure that it's added. Still the CSS is not added. Let's make sure that here's the class saved logo. The class name is not saved. See, there's some error sometimes. Maybe take all the days to figure out what's wrong. And if I go back and reload, now the size is reduced. Okay, now if we highlighted the nav bar, let's highlight. If you need to highlight a section, you need to press this icon here, and this is the nav bar. And now because the nav bar is doesn't have height, let's just give the nav bar height. If we say the nav bar height, for example, we are going to give it at least should be same the image height or less. We give the image width that was 120, and let's give it the same height also to the nav bar height 120 pixel. And then if you notice that also still the content is not like are not aligned vertically. If we highlight here, as you see, we have the image inside, but the anchor unordered list outside of this section. How we can bring all of them? We can add just display flex. As I mentioned, display flex will bring all content in one row. Basically, if that content like mixed block and inline, it will just bring all of them in one row. And now we added display flex to take all of them in one row. So next step, I need to align all content vertically. To do that, first I have to make display to be flex. Next step, to add another align items center. As you see now, our unordered list came to the center of this content. And in align items also we have other option like flex end. This is to move the content vertically to the end of the content, or flex start, which is the default flex start. This will bring them to the top of the content, and also center. This three option usually this is a common must use. Basically, you need to just focus on this three option, ignore the rest. Flex end, flex start, and center. And this same works similar to justify content, but the justify content will move the content horizontally, and the align items will move the content vertically or top down, and the justify contents right left. That basically now we align them vertically. And next step, before next step, let me just take this one and let's add it to our CSS here. And this style we mentioned that is going to be for this nav bar, as we selected here in HTML, this one. And come back to our CSS. Let's add a class for this nav bar. Also, if you need to add a class, you can use a class, or you can use just the HTML element name nav, but I'm going to use nav bar. And let's come back to our style, just see after the body. Now let's just take the h1 out because we don't need that style, just as for explanation. And add this nav bar, and we said that how we can add our selector on CSS. When use class will be dot, then the class name. And let's add the CSS that we applied, the height 120, display flex, align items center. So to center the content vertically. And if I reload, let me see what's wrong. Nav bar, let me make sure nav bar same as here, nav bar, yeah, and just reload it. Now that should work. That is working now. Next step, as I mentioned on display flex, we have to, usually the common use, there's two ways. As I mentioned, if you need to center the content vertically, we'll use the align item center, or if we need to center the content horizontally, we can use justify content. But still there is other option. Instead of just, as I mentioned, we can move the content to the beginning of the content, for example this content here to the top, or to the center or the bottom. But in justify content there are other option. For example, if you see we have this logo here should be in the left, but this content should be go to the right. How we can do that? In also the display flex or flex, we have another option. See this one, this nav bar element has two child. First child the logo, and second child the content. So we can add justify content to this, and justify content also has a space between. So basically space between and space around. We don't need to focus space around. Basically, as you mentioned, as you see now, it's adding space here on here, and if I highlight, you'll see the space in the right and the left. Here, this one and this box. But what we need the opposite. We need the space to be on the between of this content. So that's why I need to just change this content instead of a space around to be a space between. And now that's it basically. So if I highlight again the nav bar, see the space now is here on the between of this content. So that's how we can apply space between. And we can just copy this line and go and add to the nav bar. So that now we added we're using display flex, and we control the content vertically, horizontally, adding space between content using flex. That's this step. Let's see what next step also we miss here on this nav bar. And I notice the size, basically the margin or the padding outside is not too much, and also let's reduce this. If we try to reduce the margin for this, for example, if we just stop not using margin, just only padding, so or let's use margin but reduce the size, just to make it, for example, 5 between each. So just when you hover, you can see there is a space between. So if we come back to this list or anchor tag here, we can comment out this line, uncomment this, and make it, instead of 10, to apply 5 pixel, and this 5 pixel, or just leave this 10 as it was. We need to apply only the margin on the right, basically, just leave a space between each one of them. And the margin, we have here margin right. Let's comment this one out back, and uncomment this, and comment this one. As I mentioned, I will leave this only. You can come back later and learn from this. Margin right just to be, for example, just leave it 10 pixel. 10 pixels still is okay. Yeah, that is now reducing the space. And okay, so that look very close to this one. And color, see the color that should be, we can change the color to be just black, because here the color is the default. Just will use the anchor tag default color. You can come back again here to this anchor tag and add color. And the color, to add a color, there's the two common ways we can add color. There's a lot of different ways, but the colors and the value, you can write the color name directly, and you can use hex code. Hex code, it will just give you a code, or you can, if you can use just color like name like this, black. And if we reload the page, now all become black. And this same black, if we need to make it hex code, it will be just like this, hash trouble 0 or 6 times just 0. If save it and reload, still it is black. And if you don't know where to get this hex code from, you can just search actually in Google, for example, black color hex code, and you'll find it. So basically that is very simple and easy. So that now we change the color, and as the default one we have class. Now we'll ignore the class, and if you have a time later, we can come and add the class when you change. For example, when you select, to change the color for the one that is selected. So now the nav bar is selected. Next one is this here, this high, and this button, and this image too. How we can put them same in one line, same we did here. And let's here, this one, how we can do that. And that next step, which already we learned how to use flex. Oh, we can use flex to do this job, which is very similar to this. First, we need to highlight the section for all this content, and to highlight the section, this here, this called section, and then let's just add display flex. That first step, bring them in the same line. We need to bring them in the same row. Next step, we need to make sure this content on the center vertically. And how to do that? We can use align items and then center. As you see now, the title come on the center. Now we need to add a space between this content, not around, not top, not down, not between. How to do add space between? You can use justify content and then a space between, not around. As you see now, we have a space between. That we did the job. That's good job. So this is for the whole section, wrapping all this. And let's come to the HTML and find this section. If we close the header, now we did the header, This is the section. So this section here, we can use this section name, or we can add a class for it. So because we have other section and other file, we are going to give a class. And this class, we are going to, let's call it welcoming. Just call it welcoming. And let's see here, come to this page and just add dot welcoming, or same welcoming, and then open curly braces, and inside here let's add the CSS that just we added on the browser. If we save it, reload, now it's not working. Let's see, welcoming, let's make sure welcoming same spelling as this welcoming here we have, and make sure it's saved. And come to browser, reload it. That's working now. So next step, let's see, is this image same size as this? No, the image size is a bit smaller. Look, if we need to reduce the size of this image, let's just reduce that one. Select the image first by using from here, and then let's add for example width, because if we need to make it responsive, let's add it for example at the beginning. Let's see what 100% will do. That's very big. We can make it for example 60, 50, 40. Yeah, I think 40 or 45. Let's say 45. 45 is okay. 45%. So now we use pixel and also use percent. So when we go smaller screen, it will be smaller. So how you can build or create a responsive image, that you need to just use percentage. And also on the width, we have minimum width and we have maximum width. If we need to give it, like for example minimum width, this is just example. Let me come to the image first, and we'll show you also other option of how you can add widths in CSS. So because the image inside the section, in this scenario, I'm going to use this welcoming as a parent, and then select the image. So basically it'll be just welcoming, then image inside this welcoming, apply this CSS to it. So if we add this percentage, will still, if we save it, still that will be fine. But second option, we can add max width. For example, this is the max width will be like for example 300 pixel, or make it 400, 500, 600. So this is a 600. If I add it then width 100%, that is still using the 100. But for example, the 100 now will not notice that, will not notice this 100. But if I add it, let me remove this. If I added minimum width, for example, let me add here min width. How is you can add min width, minimum width? If I said minimum width, for example 20 pixel. So that means from 20 pixel, and then can grow, but it will not go beyond 20 pixel. And to make it visible, let me make it 400, for example. The minimum width 400. And if I reduce the size, so when we go to 400, it will not go to smaller than 400. See, that is 400 will not go smaller than that. But if I change it, let me go. If I change this max, let me take min out. If I change max to 400 pixel, and if I go to smaller, max is 400, but if I go to larger, it will keep just 400. It will not go to more than 400. But in a small, it's still using 400. But if I need to make it responsive, it's still with this 400 in a small screen, I need to just give this 100%. And now, if I come back and try to reduce, now is resizing. Now you don't see that, but it's resizing the image. If I go to the larger, maybe let's make this 400, for example, 700, and this make also this 700. And now let me undo the min and take out this responsive one. So if we just added max width, this is the max width. So when grow, it will just stop on the max. When go to smaller screen, it will just using the max. Still, it's not changing. Just it will use the same size, max size of this image. or until 700. But if I need to apply to make it still responsive, but not go to larger screen, not exceed like 700, but when we go to smaller screen to reduce the size, so we need to apply this both together. So now it's work as a responsive. And same the opposite, basically, if I take this out the max and add the minimum. If I need to, when go to minimum size will not go lower than 700, but on larger screen, if the image size larger than 700, it will go. Basically, if I go to smaller screen, will keep this 700. But if I go to larger screen, it will try to take the full width of the image, which 100%, which will be percentage. I hope this is clear, basically, using minimum, maximum width, and just width. And also using percentage or using pixel. So basically, I will still bring this as a example here for you. If, for example, if you need to come later and learn more about this, I will just leave them here. And I'm going to comment them out just for learning. So because you need to just make sure if you need to use maximum, minimum, try to use 100 or using widths with the percentage so you can get a responsive image. And if you don't need to use minimum and maximum, you need just to use widths. In this scenario, you have two scenarios. You can use percentage and you can use also a pixel. This scenario, for example, 400 pixel. So these two different scenario. This is how you can use widths on CSS. So now we save it. Go back, and now we have boom. We have this section now look much better. So what's next? Let's see. This size of this text here is look a bit big. Let's add size to this title, and this title inside the section. If we try to add, for example, font size, already we know how we add font size. It will be font dash size, then the size we need to add. For example, 24 pixel, maybe 34 or 44. Let's go to 44 because yeah, we have like very large size here. And the font that we need to add, basically we can apply it for the parent, and automatically the children will take the inherit size. Font size, font. Yeah, so basically you can apply, if for example you need to apply the CSS for more than child inside the parent, you can add the CSS to the parent, and automatically the children will take that size. As you see, that's too much. Let's reduce it to 40, just 40 pixel. And if we save it, reload the page, and next step here, if we see each block element by default will have a margin, and we can take that margin out, and also we can take padding out. How by default, basically when you start to add a style or adding CSS to any website, you will reset the padding and margin for all elements for inside your website. And how you can do that, basically just before this body you can add this star icon, which mean apply this CSS for anything in your website. You can add just padding 0, 0, and then margin 0. So basically this will reset the margin and padding for anything in your website, and then you can start apply your own style for each one of them. If I reload now, as you see now we have no space between this, because this automatically will take the size from the top. And also on the CSS, how we apply the CSS takes a priority or depending on the order. For example, if we add this style here, and we need to again we added another style here, we said for example to change it instead of none to different type, example block or auto. And if we save it, if you go to browser, as you see here now 1, 2, 3 is appearing, although here it's say none, because depending on the order priority, so the last one will take over the previous one. So that's why when we apply here, then everything after we can override this margin and padding. So to override now that children or h here, let's see what this one, h1, h2, h3, h4, we can come and try to select them inside. The parent for this content is a welcoming section. And then how do I know that? Because see, here this section is wrapping all this content. We have h1, 2, 3, 4. And we need to apply same styling for all this element. How we can do that? We can do like this, h1, comma, and then h1, comma, and then copy the same, h2, and same, comma, h3, and comma, do we have h4? Let's go and check that. h1 until h4, yeah. And then at the end, let's add the curly braces. That means apply same styling for all these elements. Now we can add just margin button. For example, let's add it margin button 10 pixel. Save it and go to the browser, reload. Boom, here. See, we have now, if I highlight, we have each one of them. We have button, margin button 10 pixel. If I select it, as you see here on this shape, it will give you here this margin 10 pixel. You can increase that depending on the design. That's look a little bit more. Let's add it 15. And also, if we save it, and also here we have 3 lines, and here we have 4 lines. And instead of that, we can actually reduce this by, if you go to this HTML page, we can just bring this to this H3, just one H3, and comment this empty one, and leave this here. And just let me comment that, maybe for learning if you need to come back later. If you save it, let me come to the CSS. Let's take the H4 out because we don't add a style for that now. Just only H1, 2, 3. And now if we reload, we have, yeah, this section now is done. Okay, so this button actually is not done yet. The button, basically, if we need to add CSS for this button, how we can add. And also has this nice background, same as this image background. And how we can add that, let's first select our button, and we need to change first the button background. How we can add, we can add background dash color. If we say it red, that is red now, it's not look nice, but we need to select this color. How we can do that? If you don't have any tools, basically you can use a browser tool by just press this color and then press this icon here, and I can press it again until to be blue color, and then highlight here. From here, just select this one and come back. That will give you a hex code, the hex code that I just mentioned earlier. Now we have this hex code. Let's give a padding. If we need to, as I mentioned, we can add padding this way. You can just add the padding, it will be applied in all direction. But if you need to apply top down different and right left different, we can do this way. You can top down, you can add like 10 pixel. This will mean top down, and right left 15 pixel. That will be look like this one. And also we can add the size, font size, increase the font size because look smaller. Font size is say 24 pixel. And also if we need to remove the border, so by default a button will have a border. We didn't use border yet, but this is an opportunity to show you how also to use a border. And for now, let's just how we can remove a border already exists. Border just none, like that. Border none or 0, still 0 will do and none will do. And also color, we can change the color to white, for example. And also I mentioned we can use the color name, and we can use a color hex code. Now we added the color white, but still there is more things. But before adding that, the rest, let's just copy this and add it to our code. And already this button, because inside this welcoming section, we can just use welcoming as a parent, and then button inside this welcoming, to avoid adding this style to any other button in our website. If we save it, reload the page, now we have this button. But if you come back again here, see the bottom has this shape. How this work basically? This shape here, this rounded shape, is called border radius. How we use border radius, basically I'm going to explain it. So to add the border radius, so basically just like this, border dash radius, and then you can apply the border radius. If you add just one one value that will be applied for all different corners. For example, 20 pixel and 20, not 2, and that will be applied to all around corners. But for example, if you need to apply border radius for each corner with a different size, so in this scenario you can just add border dash radius, and then top left will be, for example, 10 pixel, and top right, for example, 20 pixel, and top or bottom right 30 pixel, bottom left 40 pixel. As you see now, that shape has only look totally different shape basically. So basically we'll start first one will be top left, and then top right, and bottom right, bottom left. That's how you can apply different size for each corner. And if you'd like to apply for all same, you can use this approach. Basically I'm going to take all of them and leave this as example for you. If you need to learn, come back later. I come back to this button here and I'll add this, and just let me comment out this line properly. This is only for learning. If I save it, come back here, now we have very nice button, look very similar to this, and we can add this more than 20, we make it 25. And if you come back here, save it, yeah, look better, look much closer to this one. Now we have this section done. We have this last section, this footer, how we can make this footer look like this and reduce the size for these images. Basically this is simple here, we don't need to do a lot of work, we need only to reduce the image's size. You need to come first to the footer section and then change the size for each image. For example, let's call this, because an image we need to just give it a width, let's give it 200 pixel. It's too much, 140 or 20, 100 enough, 80 I think is okay. We can add 80 pixel for each one of this image. How we can do that? First we need to find where this image are. This image inside this footer and inside this anchor tag. Basically we need to add first selector, the footer, the parent. This is also different way you can select footer, and then each image inside this footer. Apply this CSS for to have width 100 pixel. If we save it, reload, and now we have these small images. And before last things, as you see the content now, if we let's make it larger, still there is not look, it doesn't look like same as we have here. How we can do that? Basically first we need to change the color of this content, this body, and also bring this content to here. Let's first to get the color. As I mentioned earlier, if I need to get a color for something, I can for example try to select the HTML element here first, and then from here then start, for example, adding any color, for example red, and then from here press this red and try press here to show you this icon here, this is blue, and then highlight this area. So this is the color that we are looking for. Let's take this color, go to our website here, and for the body let's add a color for the body. Let's add color, and this color we just added, so this is a body color. And now we need also to update the default color for all content inside our body to be black. This should be background color, actually, not color, background color. We need to change the background color for the body. So this is the background color for the body. Let's go and add this on our CSS here. We have this body as the background color. Now we add the background color. So inside this background body we have this div, and this div which have this content here. We can now control our content inside this div. Basically we can change the width of this, make the width for example 90%, 90% of our screen, and this is the width 90%. As you see, is now is reduced. And the height also, let's give it height also 90% of the height. And As you see, because the percentage always will try to take the content height, so that's why the height is not increased. But when adding, for example, space around this content and adding display flex, then maybe it will work much better. And now we can add background color for our content, actual content. The background color is going to be white. And now let's see, do we have border radius? Yeah, we have here border radius. Let's add a border radius on corner. Border radius, as you said, if we need to apply that shape on each corner, it will be a border radius. Let's add 10 pixel, or maybe 20. 10 is smaller. As you see now, this shape here, instead of sharp corner, you can take this and go and apply this to our wrapper, or the wrapper here will be, if we collapse this footer, the wrapper here will be this welcoming. We have header and this div here. Let's call this div, let's add a class for to this div, call it just wrapper. Let's come to our CSS. After the body, let's add to this wrapper. And add this style. Ooh, where's the style? This one. And just add this one. Save it, come back, reload it. Woohoo! That's still there, but still this is not centered as same as this one. If we need to look like here, let's reload the page. Still is not centered like that. We need to center it. How we to center a content vertically and horizontally? As we learned, we can use display flex to do this job. And we can go to the body, because the body here is the parent of this wrapper. We can just use display flex, align items center, and then justify content center. So align items center is working, but justify content is not working, because we need to give the body also height to be 100%. And that, as I mentioned, so the height will take the content height, so we need to give it a fixed height. So in this scenario, we can use 100 view height, which will be your screen height. View height mean that the view for your laptop or your computer, and then we'll take full 100 for that screen. And same, for example, if you need to take the full width for the view or your computer width, will be VW, which stands for view width. And this scenario basically now bring our content to the middle, center, vertically and horizontally. Wow, that's really nice. If we copy this and add it to the body, and now we added this styling for the body, and we learn how we can center the content vertically, horizontally using display flex, and also using align item center, justify content center. Align item centers to center the content vertically, justify content center just to move the content horizontally centered. And now see, also we need to add padding around the content, because still this content actually, if we try to highlight the area, this area doesn't, so the content surrounds this. Let's add a padding around this content. This here, this wrapper, let's add padding. Padding, as I said, will be inside, not outside. And padding, let's add 20 pixel around all content. And 20 pixel look is okay, or 25. Yeah, 25 look better. Let's add this to the also to wrapper. And we added 20, so this 25 pixel will be applied around all this card, a white card inside. And now, as you see, also this content should be, the footer should be on the bottom. On the this content should be on the center, as same as this what we have here. How we can do that? And to move this footer to the bottom and this content to the center of this section, so we can use flex. Flex is really powerful. If you remember, so this wrapper here, we give the height is like dynamic height 90%. We need to give it a fixed height. So let's just change this to 85 pixel, or 85 view height. As I mentioned, we can use 85 of this view height of this area, or your screen height. And now we need to add a display flex to this wrapper. and you can adjust display Felix. As you see that now bring all content in one row. As I mentioned, by default when you give display Felix, all your content will come in one row. If I need to fix this issue to make them to be on 3 rows instead of 1 row, basically I can just use the Felix dash direction Felix dash direction column. By default it will be a row, but if I need to override that to be column, you can do that again, but just by using Felix dash direction column. That fixing the current issue we have. And now just we need to take this first before go to next step to add it to wrapper through this wrapper styling here. And if I just add it to this, let me bring this to make the syntax look better. We added the display Felix and we change the direction to be column. If we save it, reload, nothing will change still, because we need also to prepare to do next magic thing. If we need to select the content that automatically to take available height and to just take everything to other, for example, to bring this nav bar to keep it at the top and this footer to go to the bottom, and the available space to be filled with this section at the middle. How we can do that? By just selecting the section, adding Felix dash grow 1. Ooh, that's the magic. Felix grow 1, that's the magic. By default it is a Felix children, the Felix grow will be 0, so that's why we don't need to override this to be 0 and this to be 0. And so just since we override this section, the Felix grow to be 1, basically it'll take the available space vertically, like the top space and the bottom space will take that automatically. If we highlight now, as you see that now taking the all available space, and we'll give the header just the space that looking for, and the footer same the footer height that you're looking for. So basically this, it will fix the issue for us, and we can use this Felix grow, and we can add the Felix grow now again to the section. And let's see, the section was called welcoming Felix grow, and save it. And now if we reload, boom, that's the main page job done. The style for the main page it's ready now, but it didn't go to the other pages yet. So if you see, look like very close or very similar. If just let me close this here, this is the original one, this is on Heroku, and this is the one that we just built today, just like almost same. And now we should, when navigate to about, to be just same as about we have here. So about here is still broken, and if you go to home, the home has very nice style. How we can get this fixed in about? That's the question. Because we have common CSS, we need to use the same CSS for this nav bar to the same CSS here on this about. How we can do that? Basically, if you see here in index on the header, we linked this style to this page by using this here, this line. We can go to about page, same, just on the header or in the head after the title. We can add that here and save it and go and reload the page. Boom. So still there is some CSS, but not applied for anything. It's not applied. Why? Because if you remember here, we added some classes to the nav bar, and these classes are not exist on about yet. So how we can do? Basically, we can just replace the classes here on nav bar with the nav, this body and this wrapper. Let's first take this wrapper class. Need to add this wrapper here to the old div, this div here, and then let's just collapse this and let's see this footer. Yeah, see, this is the header. We need to replace this header basically because already we added some classes to this header. Let's just replace this header with that header, which has same classes, same content. Just now we introduce a new classes. Just to save time for us, replace this header with this header, because now we added here, see here, class and these things. So now if we reload the page, boom, that's the header. Ooh, that's working now. Wow, that's good, that's good. And the next one, that's the content. Why is the footer coming to the top? And this why? Because if you remember on the index, we have this here. This section has welcoming class. So this, instead of welcoming, let's call it something because has common CSS. So for all other scenario, we can use it in other file, and to use just the same CSS, how we can change this to something like main content, for example, main dash content, and then we need to go to our CSS file here and change welcoming to with the main content. This is welcoming, and change all welcoming we have. We have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. We need to change all of them with the main. If we reload, did we save it? Yeah, we save it, but we didn't add this class to this here. See, on the about us, we don't have main. Let's create a section and give it a class, call it main. We didn't add this on the HTML tutorial, but we'll add it here, and class, call it main, and move anything inside here between footer and header inside this section. Save it. Just take that. If you reload the page, boom, that is now bring another issue to us. Okay, so we need to fix this issue because as you remember, we changed the style on main to have 3 rows. That's why, because we are using the same class, when it comes to about, it will make it 3 rows instead of 1 row or 2 rows. And how we can fix the issue, basically we need to override this main, or in our scenario basically we can call it about instead of main content, call it about content, and take this class, and if we save it, take this class before adding CSS, reload the page, still there. If you come to the CSS, see here where we're adding this, where's the main content here, this main content. Let's add some comment here. Let's say this is the main page, because now we start to introduce the main page or about page CSS, about page CSS. Here I'm going to add this class called main content, and I'm going to use same CSS for main content here, but I'm going to remove some of them. So display flex is first it has to be display flex, so we can use this flex grow to take the all available height. And font size, I'm going to take the font size out. I don't need to override the font size for about. Align item centers, for now I don't need to align them center, I just leave them as it was, and need to just take this one out and save it, reload the page. And now that fixing the footer issue, but we need to fix this, the direction, flex direction, we need to change it to be column instead of row. Flex direction column, and then save it, reload. And now we have one column and we have this title, and but still the contents not come to the middle of the screen here, and because we need to add align items, so we can align our items vertically center. And if you reload, save it, this scenario should be using justify content. If not, align item didn't works the different or opposite way. For example, sometimes align items will work horizontally, and in this scenario you need just to use justify content, which is just center. And if we save it, now that brings the content to the center of screen. See, if you need to make it the center, and but the example here is not center, so we can undo that. We can ignore this, we can just leave it like this. If you go to our page, and we can add margin top if we need to add margin top. For example, if you need to add margin top 30 pixel or so will be added here. As you see, now we have margin top. So now we added margin top, and if you see, this look a bit nice, and there is some space between lines, and also the size of this title is a bit larger. And how we can add that, basically inside about here we have H2, and let's just add size, increase the size for H2. Let's first select the parent, which will be about content. The parent will be about content, then H2, change the size to be font size, we'll use font size to change the size. Font size to be for example 30 pixel, for example. Let's see, and actually this double dot, let's single dot. If you come back, reload the page, and that's a bigger, look a little bit bigger. And now also, if we need to add some line between these, how we can do that? Basically, we can use something called line height. Line height to add a space between lines in paragraph. Line height, I'll give it, for example, 24 pixel. And we can also increase that if you need to, for example, 30, or maybe 30 is a bit more, you can 28. You can copy this and just come here, and we need to add the parent first, the parent, and then any paragraph inside this parent as this line height too, and save it and reload the page. Boom, that now look a bit much better. And what's next? So basically, if you see, there is a margin after first paragraph. If you need to this margin here, if you need to add it, you can add it, otherwise you can just keep it as it. And the size for paragraph here a bit look different, and also as a font look a bit different. If you need to increase the size, basically you can add font size. Let's give it for example now 20 pixel for paragraph, and that it. So now again we need to increase the line as its height. Let's call it 34, just until there is no right and wrong, so until you get the proper size for the one that you are looking for. So after this paragraph, we can add break and close it and just go and reload. See here we have this space between paragraph. If you can add break, and also you can add margin down. And for the title here, see this H2, we can add margin bottom, for example 20 pixel, so that to be just between the title and the paragraph. If I reload that, I'm giving some margin. So this about page, basically if you come home, about, that's look much similar. So this about page. And next is skills. Skills same again, has the same about issue before. So we need to replace also the style for the skills, which will be very similar. And first one, we need to start with the header. Basically, let's just switch the header, because the header will be same across all pages, or the nav bar. And also we need to add this wrapper class to the parent on skills. Is it skills? Yeah, skills. Come to skills page, and inside skills, let's change this header with the header this one, and the parent or the div to wrap all the content, let's give it a class, call it wrapper. And now if we save it, we go to skills and reload the page, and that's not working. As I mentioned, you have to link your style to this page, and how we can do that already we did here on all and home page, and also on about page. We need to copy this and come to skills. After the title, inside the head, we need to add this link. Basically we'll include the file that for the CSS for this page. If we save it, reload, boom, here we are. So now we have the header, we have the footer, but the content doesn't look really good. How we can fix the issue? We can just collapse the header. As I mentioned, we need to put all this content here. Let's put them inside the div, and div with the class let's put all things inside this div with the class, call it for example main, let's call it skills content, skills dash content. And as I mentioned, we give this class so we can add a specific style for our content element children inside this, for example parent, or for the parent itself. And if we come to the CSS here, let's add a new comment here. The scenario is gonna be skills page style. After this will be like that, then dot, then our class name to apply some CSS for it. We are going to use similar style for the about, and for this home. Let's see what we have original one here, skills. Yeah, it will be very similar to that. It will be very similar to about, because we don't need to bring the things to middle of here. And let's see about content. We have flex grow, we have margin top, and let's take this one, column. Reload. That's fine. Let's see if the content taking the full width, full height. Yeah, the content taking the full height for this section. But now we need just to add styling for this list of language and libraries, tools, and unit test. And how we can make them like take the 3 row on this. Basically now it is opportunity to introduce CSS Grid. CSS Grid will allow us to build a layout, responsive layout as we looking for. If we select the parent for this section here, let's see, this is the wrapper, and we are looking for the parent for this section here, which has include skills, and also looking for this section. So this section, now this is a parent, we need to add, for example, display grid. And then to give this layout, first should be, it has to be display grid, then grid template, then column, because we are looking to have a column, list of column, for example 3 column. And what's the size of for each one of them? We need to take size to be same for each one of them by using one FR, that means one fragment for the first column, and one fragment for the second column, and one fragment for the third column. So automatically that means I need to have only 3. If I have content for more than 3, then try to take them to next line, which is happening here. So take the first one, this first column, second column, third column. The fourth item will be taken to the next line and next row. So basically that's how we can make this layout and how we can use grid system. Try to just focus on very simple here on grid, because grid system has more other functionality, is more powerful. But for now, as a starting, this is good to start with. And if I come to my CSS, I need to apply that to this section, and this section inside this skills content. If I come here, I need to select first the parent, skills content, then section, and then apply this CSS to this section. And if I reload the page, now that that's what I have it here. Boom. Okay, so next, if you see, I need to add a padding. First, let me add padding to this each section. And also, if you need to compare it with here, the size is a little bit larger. And also, see this here is the same line with the title. And here, this not the title. How we can fix that? Let's first select this example here, because it's an order list. And if I just, let's add margin left, margin left, for example 10 pixel. Well, that look like a bit better. 12 pixels, same line. And I need to take it just to inside more. Let's make it 15 pixel. So how we can access this an order list? Basically, if you come to the HTML for the skills page, we have an order list inside this div. We have this an order list here. So basically inside the section. How we can access that? Basically the same. We need to just select the parent, which will be about content, and then we can select the parent for the unordered list, but still the skills content is a parent for all of them. We can just add UL, and inside here you can add this one and reload and just save it. About it's not about content, this should be skills content, and save it and go and reload. Boom. That now is adding it, but it's adding only to an order list, but not to order list. Let's add it to order list too, just because same style. As I mentioned, if you need to apply the same style, you can just add a comma and add the second class or a second selector, which OL. Now should also this one take them to the right. Yeah, that work a bit better. And now also we can add font size different, because this an order list and order list parent for this list item. We can add the style size. The children automatically will take that size. Font size, let's give it 24 pixel for now at least. And if you reload, Boom, that is better now. And also we can add a line height actually, and line height, so to give a space between, and let's give it 24 pixel and reload, and that's smaller, let's give it 34. That much better. But as you see, that's applied for first and 2, but not to the third and fourth. Why? No idea. Let's see this skills content. If you come to skills, yeah, there is a misorder here. This should be UL, not LU, and this one also UL. Save it and come back, reload the page. Boom, that's the style now is working. And also we can actually increase the title for each one of these size. So let's see what the title is. H3. If we come back here and just copy this, and not copy, actually just skills contains in H3 font size. Let's give it 30 pixel and reload. Boom, 30 is a bit much, let's call it 24. That's a bit better. And now we can add margin button to this skills title. So we have skills title, this H2 here, and let's add also and increase the size for that. And before the section, let me add the skills, the parent, then H2, the one that you need to apply CSS for, font size, for example 30 pixel, and margin button, for example 20 pixel. And if you save it, so we'll increase the size of this and we'll put margin button. That's it. And I actually also I can give each content here margin button, so to leave a space between second row. How I can do that? Basically I have section, and if I come back to this skills, so this section has list of div, so each div I can give a margin button. So basically it will be skills the parent, and then section the second parent, and then the child, and the sibling will be the div, and I need to apply margin button for this. Margin button, for example 10 pixel. If I save it, should now give some space between here. That it, boom, giving some more space here. So basically this is a skills page. That it, so should be done now. That look very similar to this one. And now if we come to next page, which work page, so again I need to update the header, and this is also going to be very similar to other pages. Let's use always the index or the home header as example. This header here, and if you go to what is it, is a work page. Where is the work? Skills, contact, about, work here. And let's just change this header here with the new one and save it, and go to before go to the page. As I mentioned earlier, we need to link also the style, the CSS with the HTML, so we need to call this in the head after the title. So we need to add this link here, save it, and go to the browser, reload, boom. So this is the header. That still there is some work we need to add. Basically we forget to add the wrapper. So see here, this all content has a class called wrapper. So wrapper, each will control the layout for the all content. So this is the wrapper, and now we need to add another class for the content. Let's close the header and collapse the header, and also this content. Let's move all this content inside one wrapper, will be div. And this div, let's give it a class name or class, call it for example work content or works content, and inside here just put the things that we copied. And let's take this class and go to the CSS here, and now let's add a new comment, and this section will be works page style. similar. So this just to describe the each section or each section style. So basically make it easier for you to read, and I can add that class, and then now I can try see the skills content. It will be very similar to skills content if we just took this one and add it here, and if we go back to here and reload, boom, that's now is working. Next step, basically we need to apply again same for this title. Also need to add margin button, and also margin button and line height for this paragraph. As you see that with the line height, we need to apply it for all paragraph across our website. We can do something that will work for all other website, our website. Basically, if we come to paragraph here, this one here, see, if we need to make this to let this to be applied for all paragraph in our website, we need just to take this parent out, and just that mean any paragraph in the website it applies this for. If we reload, boom, that now giving that line height. That's good, really. And now we can add a break. Let's go to this work page between these two article. We can add break and just add this to same line here. And if you reload the page, to just give some space between here. And now I can add also margin between this here. Actually, looks I need a bit of margin, and also this title. Can add margin also. This title here is experience h2. If I come back to the CSH, and just if we took this class as the parent, and then h2 margin bottom 20 pixel, because we added the other pages same. Let's just use the same one. Now that's bottom like that. So if you need to add to this, you can do also. Basically, let's see what is work. We have this h2, h3, h4, h4 twice. So basically we can h3 we can apply to this. Let's just duplicate this. Need to go to h3 and h4. Each one of them add margin button, for example 10 pixel instead of 20. If we go and save, should add here between this one. Reload, from this h2 is working, but h4 because it's h3, need to change it to h4. Boom. So that now adding margin between each one of them. That basically the skills and the work done. Last one, contact again, we need to add the header. So if you go back again, let's just take the header, this header here, and go to contact page. Let's switch this header with the new header, and also let's add a wrapper, a class wrapper for the all content wrapper. If we save it and come back, reload, that's not working because we didn't link the CSS. See, actually repeating these things, maybe you feel a bit boring, but also it's good to remember things. It's good to learn, and while you miss, for example, forgetting, but always, so by repeating, so you can start to learn things much better. So this is my preferred way. I try to share with you guys. Boom, that's now magic. Just we link the CSS, that we have this nav here, nav bar, and also we have the footer, and still we need to center this content. And to do that, let's just collapse the header and collapse here this footer. And as I mentioned earlier, all the content in the middle, let's put them inside a div, and this div we can add a class to it, relevant class, for example, call it contact or main contact, main or contact content to be just same as other content. And inside here, just add our work. If we save it and come back here, nothing should happen and change because we just update that. And now if we go to the CSS here at the bottom, let's add a new comment. This will be contact page style, and then add the class that we just added, contact content. Let's see, this will be same as this, same as works content. And if you save it and reload, boom. So basically the content will take the full height, available height. So maybe you don't notice that, but the footer now is taking the bottom. Previously it wasn't on the bottom. And now, so basically what we need to do is this, we need to style this title to give it some space between the map and the title. And the title, basically, let's close this, leave all the contact. The title inside this class will be h2. First we need to add the parent, which is this class, and then access the title, which will be h2. And then margin, give it margin button. So to give some space, margin between the title and the map, let's give it just 20 pixels, same other pages, and reload from that. Now 20. So now the map, we need to give this map width 100%. And how we can do that, let's come back to our content. We have here just this map, and we have this div. Let's give this the div by default is 100. If we just hover this here, see the div 100, but the map inside this div is not taking that 100. What we need to do, we need inside this parent, same, just the parent instead of h2 will be iframe, which is the same, the map HTML element, this one, iframe, and then the width 100%. Save it, come back here, reload, boom, that magic is working. So we need to add margin at the bottom after the map here, and in this scenario we can add margin for the iframe or to the div inside the map frame, but still it will work. Let's add just margin button, for example 15 pixel. Let's say 15 pixel. Reload. Now we have this margin outside here. So that it basically. Now we have our phone, email, address. We don't need to change this a lot. Maybe if we need to leave some space between down here. And already the map is selected here. This iframe. Let's give it the height. For example, 350 pixel. And come reload it. And that now fixing the issue here. So, and already giving this enough padding. We don't need to give that padding anymore. So basically this is a contact page. Contact, work, skills, about, and home. And this is your portfolio using CSS and learning CSS. And also we can add in CSS, there is a hover. Also, let's give you this example, this very quick example. When we hover on this link, for example, you need to see this link color to change to be, for example, blue. That just indicates that you are hovering on this. See at the top here for this anchor tag here, need to you select the same one, but outside here, this anchor tag, then colon, then hover. So we need to use this selector, hover. When hover, we need to change the color to be, for example, blue. And if you notice here, the color is black, but when you hover, the color will be override. And this has to be after this one, because as I mentioned, the CSS will take the priority depending on order. And if I reload, and now if I hover, as you see, now we have different color. So that the hover on CSS. Basically, we try to learn in my way using, for example, learning CSS by building or converting HTML website to very nice. Imagine this one as was initially how it was look and now how it's looking. So basically, now you can do your portfolio from this two tutorial from HTML tutorials, the one that we just taught last time. If you didn't watch that, you can go and watch it and come back again to do this CSS, and with the end of these tutorials you can build your very first portfolio website. And thank you for watching, and try also, if you didn't subscribe and enable the notification bell to get all new tutorials, and leave comment and press some up. This support me continue adding more tutorials. Thank you, and see you in very next tutorial.